Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining back to the EDGE webinars. This is EDGE webinar number 3. We had already 2 webinars on explaining the program, the EDGE program, and this is number 3. What we are trying to do, we are going to repeat this in the evening as well for the Asia, which will be available for them tomorrow. So today, what we are going to speak, this would be the 3rd webinar on the Open Learning Campus of World Bank Group, speaking about EDGE certification system. So far, we have spoken about EDGE certification and the software, and today would be a bit more focused on the certification itself. So the process would start with speaking about the entire program in terms of giving you a bit of background and introduction to the program. Then we'll speak about the software and display how the software program works and how you can do a step-by-step to certify a project. And finally, we would have some questions and answers. So starting with the presentation here, as I mentioned, there was 2 other webinars before, and the reason it's important for you to know where they are located is that if you want to know how to use the software, or if you want to know how to get started with EDGE certification as an overall element, you can access them into Open Learning Campus website, which is olc.worldbank.org. and then search for EDGE. You would be seeing the previous recorded webinars there. And here, now that we know a bit more about the software and how the software works, and we know who are the certifiers globally, today we want to display to you how the process works. Basically, if maybe this question comes in many people's mind that, okay, if I have a project in hand, I want to certify my project. What exactly I need to do? What are the steps that I need to take from A to Z to have my project certified? And hopefully we'll cover this today together. As an introduction, very quickly, in terms of how EDGE is being designed, obviously, the green building so far have been captured very small part of the building sector. That the blue top that you can see in this triangle is the number of buildings being certified globally by green certification systems, which is great. They are leading the market. What we are trying to do here is trying to reach to the mass market using this program. And reaching to the mass market can only happen when we have a system that is simple, quick, and affordable rating system, and targeting scale. That's basically what we are trying to do with EDGE program. And you will then see how the program being designed to cater to this market, basically. EDGE has 3 main elements that is quite important to understand. The first part is a free software. The free software is available globally for 120 countries, 25 countries now, which has been a big achievement for us, and it's being developed on every single day. You probably would not hear from us every day and every morning and evening because we don't want to bother everyone with our new news, but every day there are improvements to the database, and the database is on the continuous development. The reason we don't mention them as versions because that's only in reaching the data. Whenever it comes to a change in the software that impacts your certification, then we'll release that as a new version or new subversion. So the software is available for free. But what we encourage you to do, if you don't have, I guess most of you already have accounts in the software and you can access the software. But if you don't, I encourage you to access the software, in EDGEbuildings.com. I'll display how it works, but encourage you to create your accounts and access and create some projects. There is no harm in creating projects. It's for free. You can save as many projects as you want to the software. The second part of the story is the EDGE standard. We are defining a global standard that is 20% saving from a local baseline, and that would be an easy to understand and universal standard. What it means that for every country, every city, there would be a baseline for different types of buildings, and as long as you save 20% from that baseline, that would be your minimum requirements for EDGE certification. There has been lots of questions around the baseline and understanding what is exactly the baseline. The baseline is defined using an energy modeling specific to that building type in that specific country or city. So we are using the local weather data, we are using the local construction conditions, and we are using the conditions of the building in terms of the occupancy and elements around that. But all of this happens behind the scenes. So as a user, you don't need to worry about any of those elements. Those are all being dealt with behind the scene. What we can see in the software would be a baseline condition and your building condition, and how we can improve from that baseline by 20%. The certification is the third piece of the puzzle. Obviously, designing a good building is great, and you can get the savings you want, but unless you certify your project, it's not easy for third parties to recognize your building. That's where we bring the certification infrastructure to ensure that there's a third party checking off the projects and making sure that they get certified. And that certificate is important because if you want to, it's like, an example is like university degree. You can study lots of books and you can do courses, but unless you have your degree recognized by a third party, you cannot claim that you are an engineer or you have finished your courses. The same way, we want this certificate because this will be a way to present to financial institutions and to governments that you certified your project. So the software is very easy to use. I would not explain in detail. You can reach back to the other webinars, but basically there are a menu of options that you can select, and from a base case that is available, you can see how much improvements your building is making. There is cost data and payback data in the software that makes the software easier to understand and also to convey the message to the builders and developers. The 20% savings. You probably would say, what are those 20% savings? The first one is 20% saving on energy consumption. And energy consumption has been, there was a question today from one of the listeners that they were saying, there are technologies that can be very good in carbon, and why don't you include those in EDGE? EDGE looks at the delivered energy consumption, and specifically we are not looking at carbon, and we can explain why we are not looking at carbon at this point, but and delivered energy is what we are focusing on, and that's where the 20% reduction comes into play in kilowatt-hour per square meter. The 20% on water consumption, and that's again delivered water that comes from any fresh water source. And then finally 20% saving on materials embodied energy, which is specific to materials embodied energy usage, not to the quantity of material or not to the materials size or type, basically. In terms of the certification, you probably would say, who are the certifiers? Very quickly, we have, so far we have 5 local certifiers for EDGE in 5 countries. This includes Costa Rica, India, Indonesia, South Africa, and Vietnam. And we have 2 global partners, SGS and thinkstep, and GBCI. They can certify projects in the countries that we don't have a certifier, local certifier. So, for example, if you're going to certify a project in Nigeria, which we had very good developers in Nigeria contacted us for housing projects, then they need to contact one of the global partners. If you have a project, let's say in South Africa, then you need to contact the Green Building Council of South Africa. So from this table, you would recognize who to contact. But the other important point here that is key is that we have a 20% target for countries with local partners. What it means that we need to reach 20% of all new construction being built in those target markets to get certified by EDGE in a window of 7 years. So the 7 years window is very important. I forgot to mention at the start that I have 2 of my colleagues here, Rebecca Menes, and also I have my colleague Atif Sayed. Atif is based in Jakarta, and Rebecca is based here in Washington, D.C. And they are on chat, and they will respond to your questions as we go forward. Thank you both for your help. In terms of what buildings being covered so far, we are covering 5 building types: hospitals, offices, hotels, retail, and homes. There is in the pipeline, we have one element for light industries that is coming to be under retail. And this is something that will come probably in the next 3-4 months. And in future, we may add other building types to the types of buildings covered under EDGE. So which countries EDGE is available in? You can see the list of 125 countries here. You may recognize your country here. And the yellow ones are the ones that we have local partners in. So for all the countries that are in yellow, you need to contact the local partners. All the countries that are in white, you need to contact one of the global partners for registering your project and certifying your project. So the steps for certification is quite easy. The website has explained, and we developed this website further and further to clarify exactly what you need to do from step 1 to step 5, 5 steps. The first step is for you to create your project. Basically, everything starts from someone that creates a project on the EDGE software. What it means that you log into the software and you create your project, and we call it a self-assessment. So you do your self-assessment of your project to see where you're standing, whether you're meeting 20-20-20 or you're 30% saving from a baseline. So after you create your project in EDGE app, then you'll basically start registering your project. Registering your project means that you are contacting one of the local or global partners and officially registering your project for certification. So step 2 starts when you want to certify your project. If you don't want to certify your project, then you can continue using the software without registering. Once you want to certify and using the register element, then there would be fees for certification that you can pay, and from that point onward, there would be a global or local certifier basically taking care of your project all the way to certification. The next step is that you need to have an auditor. Obviously, if you are an auditor, then you cannot audit your own project. You need someone else to audit your project. Or if you want to certify your project, you hire an auditor if you are in a local country. if you are not in a local country, global certifiers will provide the auditor to you, auditor details to you, and then you work with that auditor to certify. So you provide your information to the auditor, and auditor is the one that applies for certification. So auditor's responsibility is to review your project details and review your project information and compile the final documents for certification. Auditor is the one that sends the information to the certifier, and certifier will review the project information and certify your project. In terms of steps for certification, just to be clear that flow would be for one step. For example, you can get the preliminary certificate at the end of your design stage. And then if you want to do construction certification, you again provide your documents to the auditor. Auditor will provide the information to the certifier, and you would get the EDGE certificate, which comes at the end of the construction. So there are two levels of certification. You get one at the end of the design and one at the end of construction. How the certificate would look like. The certificate has designed in a way that conveys the main messages. So this is an example of a certificate. You can see that the savings, energy savings, water saving, and material saving is reported on the certificate directly. So what it means that as a user, we don't have a staging in the rating, but what we have is reporting of your actual savings. So, for example, if you are selling this property or renting it, you can say, okay, this building has 25% energy saving, and it's very easy and clear to comprehend what 20% energy saving means. And the same with water saving and materials. And hopefully one day we would have a competition globally to say, okay, who are the highest savers on energy, water, or materials? And then we can compare buildings with each other in terms of percentage saving in housing, for example. But also the measures that being selected, they're all displayed behind the certificate. What it means that when I claim that I meet the EDGE certification, and I use this type of technologies in my building, and this will go to the home buyers, this will go to the home, the people that are going to get mortgage on the homes or rent the home. So this would be part of the documents of the home, and you would see that it says, for example, we are using low energy lighting in this building. And as a user, then if you don't see those lights being installed, then you can get back and say, but this is not happening. So the transparency of the information is important, so that there's always the self-checking of people around the world. And that's quite key here. But we also have the certifier, which a certifier has certified, who is the auditor, when this has been audited, and what's the expiry of this certificate. What is important to mention is that we are putting an expiry date for design certification, which is the preliminary certificate, so that there's a validity for it. But for construction or final certificate, there's no expiry date, so that would be valid for now, without any time for expiry. If you have any questions outside this, you can always reach us at edge@ifc.org, but also you can reach us through the website edgebuildings.com. Now what I should do is to move on to share my screen on the software itself and display how the software works. Okay, so here to go through the process of certification, what I'm trying to do here is to show you, if I'm going to certify a project in Vietnam, for example, how should I do it? If I'm going to certify a project in a country that we don't have a certification body, a local certification provider, what shall we do? So we'll go through those two steps, and then finally I'll show you how the website responds to all of these requirements. So let's assume that we have a hotel building in Vietnam and we want to certify this. To make the life easier, I pre-set up this project, and you can do the same in your own account. But this is a project that we created in Vietnam. It's a hotel, a 4-star hotel. It has 210 rooms, and all the settings are set up. In terms of energy efficiency, this building has 36% saving on energy, with the measures that are being selected for energy efficiency here. It has 27% saving on water, with the measures that are being selected for water efficiency on the menu. And finally, it has 21% saving on materials efficiency, with the measures that are being selected for materials efficiency. So now we have more than 20% saving on these three elements, and the bars are in green. It means that we probably we can certify, apply for certification for this project. The first step that you need to do is to download a PDF by clicking on the file and downloading the PDF. The downloaded PDF would look something like this. Obviously, this is a report that you can send it to anyone you want, but when you have this report, basically this displays the same information that you can see on the software. I'm just scrolling down on the software, so you can on the PDF report, so you can see how it looks. There is one element being added to this PDF download, and it's the certification checklist. So you can look at what elements you need to provide to certify the project. And as you notice, this is for preliminary stage. So this is your design stage document requirements, and all the documents being listed here. So very easily you can see what you need to submit to get certified for design. If you want to know what you need to do for post-construction, you can click on the post-construction stage here and then download the PDF. In that case, you can see the documents for post-construction stage information download. So it always responds to the stage that you select on the software page itself. Okay, so we have our PDF, we have our project being set up, and now we want to go and register our project. So the registry is very easy. I'll start with the first page and then say where we should go to certify our project. Obviously on the software, it's quite easy to recognize where to go. If I want to certify my project, I click on the Certify. And if you come down, it explains about the steps that I explained to you. But my project was saved as a project in Vietnam. So my project is located in Vietnam. I need to select which certifier I should work with. Obviously, Vietnam is one of the countries which we have SGS as our local partner in Vietnam. So I'll select Vietnam. When I select Vietnam, obviously you can see a beautiful shot of possibly this is Hanoi. But then you can see the information about the cost of certification, and again the same process of stages of certification. So here, if I want to register my project, I need to express interest. I click on express interest. And here I can fill up my information. Very simple. Your details, your role in the project, what stage of the project it is. Is it design, under construction, or built? There was a question in the questions and answers whether built projects can certify. They can only certify if they meet the 3 requirements of EDGE on energy, water, and material. And there's documents to prove that, for example, the construction requirements being specified in line with EDGE requirements. In that case, they can be certified. And then you put the project details in, information about the project. And lots of people have questions about what massive project flow area means. Massive project flow area means the total area of the project that you want to certify. And it becomes handy when you have a mixed-use building or you have a project that has different types of buildings in. For example, if you have a project that has 10,000 square meters, but it has a mix of residential, offices, and retail. In that case, the master project floor area is 10,000 square meters, but then when you do your EDGE assessment, you enter the specific area of each type into the EDGE assessment. So the master project floor area will be used for calculating what is the cost of certification. Here then you can look at the project types, whether they are residential or non-residential. By selecting any of them, then you would see a menu of options for defining your building type. So whether it's a single family or multi-family, how many bedrooms it has, number of units, floor area. This only helps the certifier to be able to basically understand your project in detail and provide the fees for you in line with the actual details. You can add more explanation to the project if you need to add any more other details. But also if you can attach a master plan or site plan that defines for a user, for a third party to understand your project better, then you can choose a file here and upload that file and then submit it. So basically this is where you submit this information. This information will go to the certifier. Certifier then comes back to you in the email that you provided by a fee for your certification. So the fee comes back to you. You can accept that fee. Once you accept that fee, you can pay the certification fees to the provider. And from that point, your project will be registered for certification. For the local partners, the next step is for you to select your auditor. So, under the Certify, now you want to select your EDGE auditor. For example, if I am in Vietnam and I want to select my EDGE auditor, I come to select, and here is the list of auditors in Ho Chi Minh City and in Hanoi. You can contact as many as of them you want. By clicking on their names, you can, it opens up an email, their email address. You can write an email. What we suggest is that you provide the project information that you have with this email so that they can basically respond to you with the right price. Once you select your auditor, from here, the auditor is the person that will go through your documentation. After selecting your auditors, the first thing that you want to do is to send them the PDF file that you have done and say, this is my project, I want to certify it in this city, what I need to do next. And that's where auditors start their process of certification. And for auditors, then auditors, they can get their auditor checklist from under the technical. It will be on all the pages. If I click on auditor checklist, depending on what type of project it is, whether it's home, hotel, you can select the submission template for any of them as an auditor. You provide the submission template. You know, the documents that comes from the checklist, you provide them in the submission template to the certifier. That's the process of certification. Okay, now I go back and I say, okay, my project is not in one of those 5 countries. What should I do? Okay, the process of creating your project and downloading PDF is the same. You don't need to, there's no difference there. But if I click on the Certify and I go to other countries, here you can basically contact one of those 2, or you can get a quotation from both of them. So that's basically up to you. How do you want to work with them? If you want to get a fee from GBCI and thinkstep SGS, you can click on the obtain a quotation. The information here is very similar to the previous one. You fill the project information. The only difference is that you can select one, or you can select 2 of them, and then submit your information. Based on your selection, if you select 2 of them, you will receive a fee back from both of them. If you select one of them, you get a fee proposal back from one of them, and you submit your project. The other difference here is that you can get the fees for different stages, for registration and certification, which is the entire process. Or you can say whether you want the audit for design or audit for construction. So if I click 3 of them, it means that I need the price for my design audit, I need the price for my construction audit, and registration and certification. But also you can say what is the expected completion date for design, what is the expected construction completion date. And the reason for that is that for auditor service, they need to understand how long your project will take. If your project takes 1 year to complete or 5 years to complete. So that's important to mention here. And you basically submit your project for registration. Here again, you will receive back the fee, the quotation from the global partner. Using that quotation, you can pay the fee for to global partners, and from there you would be assigned an auditor, and then the auditor starts working with you throughout the project audit process for design and construction. One other element that you would know how to share your project with auditor. If you want your auditor to enable the auditor to access the information on the software, you can click on the file on the software and share project. By sharing project, what you need to know is your auditor email address, and having the auditor email address, then you can give them the right to access your project, and you can give them different access rights as you want as a project owner. And this is where auditor would also have access to your project, to view your project, to review it. And in future, we would have more functionality here for auditors to be able to basically do their audits all on this website rather than using the checklist, and that would make the process even easier in future. Okay, I stop here with the process. I wanted to give more time for questions and answers. I'll go back to the questions and take some questions. I know that Atif and Rebecca were answering some of the questions very fastly. Thank you. So there are 5 questions that I can see here. Number 1 is how EDGE is different from other certifications. Obviously, this question comes back many times. But the important thing about the difference between EDGE and other certification systems is that EDGE is not trying to, there's no, sometimes this comes as, okay, so are you guys competing? Of course not. We are not competing. We are complementing each other. From IFC point of view, we recognize all other certification systems and we encourage projects to do them. EDGE is providing another option to those certifications, but also EDGE provides a way of connecting and making the process easier, but also providing the financial information as well. So financial information is, for us, is key. Making it easy and simple is key, and making it quick is also key. That we want to make the process quick so that you can go through the process of certification in a matter of days. The important other element about EDGE is that we are all about the scale, and lots of people, they ask, okay, why don't you add, for example, sustainable sites? Why don't you add air quality? Why don't you add other elements to EDGE? The important thing here is that EDGE is about efficiency of resources. The resource efficiency is the key on EDGE, and the other important thing here is that it needs to be at scale. So making it scalable, we can add lots of other things, but then the ability of the project to be the EDGE to be at scale becomes less. Therefore, we want to be focused but scaled rather. And the other key element is that we want to reach mass market, and that's the way EDGE has been designed to reach mass market, reach more projects. Important thing to say here is that there would be more to do for all of us as green building community. Some people have this view that, okay, if EDGE is very simple, then there's no need for us to do anything. No, of course, there's need for auditors, there's need for consultants, there's much more need for efficient materials, much more need for efficient technologies. This is facilitating the process and bringing more to the game. So hopefully we would have more to do for every one of us. The second question is, how can consultants participate in EDGE? So the way that we are looking at the community of EDGE is that we would have auditors, but we don't need a lot of auditors. We need auditors. But what we need more than auditors, we need consultants. We need consultants that they understand EDGE and they can guide the clients and projects through the process of certification. Therefore, the training program has been designed in a way that you can take a shorter course for consultants and they don't need to take any exam. So that piece doesn't need any exam, and through that training, then you can work and provide information to the clients. How to certify a project, what is the process of certification, how to use the software, and obviously from consultant point of view, the innovation is very important. So you can use this as a tool to facilitate your process of decision making and innovation much faster, and then use that to certify the project. So consultants, they obviously can use EDGE. The other element that I would say is that EDGE is available for free. So if I used to work as a consultant in the sustainability arena, obviously if you have a tool in hand that can provide you the savings and the cost very easily and very quickly, that's exactly what you need to communicate with your client the benefits of your decisions. And that's really important from consultant point of view it's a tool for consultants to enable them to communicate their decisions with the clients. The next question is, can EDGE be used for existing buildings? I think I covered this when I mentioned the existing buildings. Let's say if you have a project that's being built and that project has all the elements of EDGE requirements, then it can be go through the EDGE certification. Obviously, it doesn't need to go through design certification, it just goes to the construction certification. However, the important thing is that ensuring all the documents are in place to ensure the requirements. We would not compromise on the specifications or document requirements for an existing building. So it's more difficult for an existing building to provide those information and get certified. Also, if you start from early design stage, it's much more easier to go through the certification when you're at the early design stage rather than using it later. That makes it much more difficult. So the next question is design certification necessary first, or can my project achieve EDGE final certification right away? If you have not done you are at the construction stage, you can go direct to final certification. You don't need to go to the design certification if you don't need the design certification. So you can go to the final right away without having the design certification. Obviously, the key is that when you start at the design, lots of decisions that you want to make helps you to modify your design much easier. The other important point that we have not touched here, and it's key for the green building community, is that the EDGE projects, EDGE touches projects in different times, but also it touches in different levels. So for example, EDGE would impact the design from the early design stage with window-to-wall ratio and the design architectural elements. Then it impacts the mechanical and electrical design in terms of how the mechanical and electrical design has been designed. And then moving on, when you reach to the construction, at construction it impacts the purchase of the supplies for construction. It will impact your contractor on site, what to buy and how to check the specification of the materials being purchased. But also it impacts, I forgot to say, the structural design and the structural engineer decisions. Therefore, as a consultant, you need to know what are the touch points of EDGE and how you can work with your client and the project team to ensure that all of those touch points being impacted at the right moment. Without that entire spectrum of impact, the project will not be certified and will not get the benefits of certification. So if you are working on a project, make sure that you lead that touch points very, very carefully throughout the project to ensure each understand their roles and responsibilities in regard to EDGE. All right, here let me see if other questions are there. Yeah, there is a question about if it is mandatory from Kaya is asking the question, if it is mandatory to work with auditor to get certification, is it possible to work with a consultant? From certification point of view, you need to have an auditor. Without an auditor, you will not be able to receive a certification. Auditor is another pairs of eyes that will look into your project and make sure that those project requirements are in place. So as a consultant, you can provide all the data and package the data, and it's important for you to provide it in a way that auditor will make the auditor life easier and less back and forwards. But then when it goes to auditor will review it, and auditor is the one that submits the project to certify it. Why is important to have the auditors? Those auditors will be checked. We are doing a very, very strict quality control on the auditor's work. There is a specific requirements for EDGE exam of the auditors. auditors will also be checked on their projects. For example, when an auditor submits their first project, the certifier needs to double check that project, even with the site audit. And then when it goes to the following years, there would be random checks of auditors' work. So there's always a quality control to make sure that auditors are providing the quality information and protect the customers' rights, basically. You know, if we have developers that are submitting their projects, we want to make sure that they receive the best service possible from the auditors and certifiers. Okay, the question about financing. I think the question about financing always comes in. Obviously, maybe the question comes because we are World Bank and we are working, in developing countries, providing development support around the world. The fact is that if you cannot say that if a project being EDGE certified, then they will be eligible for financing. No, that's wrong. That's not correct. Projects, what we are doing in parallel to EDGE certification is that we are working with financial institutions, we are working with banks to recognize green buildings. And by recognizing green buildings, we don't mean to recognize only EDGE buildings. We are talking about green buildings. And by recognizing green buildings, then there would be lower interest rate for green buildings. That's our goal, to work with different financial institutions. So far, we have financial institutions like Proparco, FMO, and CDC already recognized EDGE as one of their eligibility criteria to provide lower interest rate. And we are working in different countries. We are working in Turkey, we are working in Lebanon, we are working in Latin America, and also in Asia and India to work with, recently last week we had another bank in India, Punjab National Bank, that they recognize again to provide lower interest rate on green buildings. And this is great. We want to increase this community of banks that provide better rates to green buildings. But it doesn't mean that every project being certified will have access to that. So it depends on the country, it depends on the conditions of the country. There was a question about the auditors and whether the auditors, when the auditors are being paid by the client, can they be impartial? Obviously, it's a good question, but with the same logic, you can say certifiers are being paid by the client as well. Certifiers will be paid by the clients to certify their projects, but that doesn't mean that they will not be doing the quality control. So auditors, with the same way, will be paid by the clients, but we have very strict quality control, and also we have codes of conduct for auditors to ensure that they are not doing anything wrong. If they do anything wrong, we'll cancel their audit license, basically. So there is a question about 20% saving comparing to which benchmark. Again, this is a question that comes often in terms of the baseline. The baseline is always defined, and that question comes from Levan. These projects are always compared to a baseline in the specific city and country. So the baseline is always tailored to specific cities. There's no global baseline. There's no comparison to a US baseline or to a European baseline. The baseline is specific to each country and context-based. Baseline is always under refinement. We have a 3-year window for countries that we have working in, like India, Vietnam, Indonesia. Every 3 years, the baseline will change, will be revised, depending on the changes in the country. Let's say if a country introduces more strict green building code, that becomes the baseline. So baseline is a moving baseline that will be more and more strict as we go forward. So every 3 years, the baseline would be more and more difficult. So getting to 20% saving would be always a challenge. So we are pushing the basically EDGE projects to always move forward and be ahead of the market by 20% at least. Okay, so let's see the next question. Okay, so there is a question about from Joel saying that is there an equivalent to platinum level LEED certification? Does that no? Okay, so in terms of equivalence between EDGE and LEED, we don't have any equivalence between these two certification systems. So in LEED you have 4 levels of certification. In EDGE we have 20% as the minimum, but you can go beyond 20%. You can design a net zero energy building by going to 100% saving on energy. You get EDGE certified, and in your certificate you will receive that you get 100% saving on your energy. And the same with water, and material will be reported. So it always shows you how much you are saving, but it never gives you any rating. We are working with other certification providers to see how we can, cross-fertilize the different technologies like the EDGE and other rating systems, but it's at very early stage right now. So before I close, I wanted to mention one more thing about the program. I think I wanted to say a really, really big thank you to everyone. I think this is a huge achievement for all of us to see that we are getting together, we are working together, and the only way that we can define ourselves as people that are on this call, and also we are working together. The other day we were trying to understand who we are and how we define ourselves. I think the way that we can call ourselves are the people that want to make the world a better place for living. And the only way to do it is for us to all, as a community, to work together, use our resources, connect the dots that we have and our resources to ensure we achieve a better future for our children and for future. And that only happens if we all work together. And hopefully this will provide a platform for all of us to gather around this and work together. Thank you very much. I invite you to visit edgebuildings.com. Please provide your feedback to us all the time. We take your feedbacks very seriously. And I want to thank you here, my colleagues as well, and also the Open Learning Campus and facility for providing this. This will be recorded, and you will have access to this as a recording. Thank you very much, and goodbye.